What's up, guys? Kyle here. So I want to show you this client jumpstart. So this can be used either for if you're an SEO agency offering SEO and doing it for your clients, or if you're a business owner and you want to just do your own optimization of your site and make sure you have the most bang up site around. This can be used for you as well. So just when I say client, think of your business. Okay. So first of all, we just want to create a client data sheet. We want to have everything in one place. If you're constantly going from one place to another, saying, hey, where's my password for this? Or where's the login for this? Where's the access to this? Where's this document over here? You're not going to get squat done. But if you have a central place that you have every single thing related to your website, that will be the key for you for your success and getting success faster than usual. Sometimes people say, yeah, Kyle, I really want to have success, but yet they're so disorganized that they can't really facilitate success. They can't contain the success. They can't facilitate it. It's probably the best word around for that. So create a sheet like this where you have your business information, your client information. So in this case, since we've done SEO campaigns for different businesses, that's what I have it written out for. But see how I've got, so we'll have a call notes document for monthly meetings. We'll have a link to their folder where we have every single document related to the website's campaign, related to creating a successful website. You'll have an onboarding video that's 5 to 10 minutes long saying, hey, this is where everything is. There's how to access. Here's how to share access with us, etc. So there's just little help articles that are attached there that Google recommends and updates, and they maintain it. So if you're the business owner doing this, write down the website that your Google Analytics or the email address that your website is attached to, the Google Search Console account, what email is that attached to, what Google My Business listing, what email is that attached to, and put that email here. Don't put the password in there because that's just waiting for your stuff to get stolen. Use LastPass.com or something to store your passwords. But then you say, okay, where's your website access? What email is that? So then you know where that is, and you know to maintain that email, and it doesn't go by the wayside. So then you're going to look at your GMB. What's the GMB name? Like, this is the name that's written on your Google My Business listing. So, like in this case, if we just searched for Phoenix retaining walls, you got Phoenix retaining walls here. This is the GMB name, right? What's the category that GMB is in? Well, that's a concrete contractor, but it's not available on this one. So we're going to go over to maps and get that figured out here. So retaining wall supplier. That's the category that's in. This is the category here. Next up, you've got your share link. Well, so this is for easily getting reviews and easily getting more attention on your Google My Business listing. So your share link is if we click into this one here, and then you get your share link, that's this link here. That's your share link. Next is your address, if it's showing. Sometimes they're service-based businesses and those addresses don't show. Next up is your phone number. Your phone number is simply the number that's on the GMB. All right, so this is 602 whatever. Then you have that, so your GMB hours. Are you 24/7 offering like emergency services throughout the night and regular services during the business day, or do you have specific business hours that are displayed? All right, here 8:30 to 4:30 Monday through Friday is this business's hours. So the latest business that you'll see traces of this business account in here. I copied this sheet from a recent campaign, but what we have here, this was a mold remediation client, and they had, so these were the services that they wanted. What are the services that you offer and the service areas that you're offering those services in? List all those out here. Maybe that's 20 long. Maybe there's 3 of them. But then you have it all in one place, and that'll become key in just a minute here. So let's dive into the second piece of it here. So run your site through Screaming Frog. If you're just building on a new site, that doesn't matter. But Screaming Frog is a really helpful free tool, up to 500 URLs. You go to Screaming Frog, Google Screaming Frog SEO tool, and it'll pop up for you. You can download it on there. But then what this does is it gets every single page of the website. You filter for HTML, and then you export it to your Google Sheets account. That doesn't get much more simpler than that. So then you get every single page, and you get all the keywords, all your titles, everything there. Because Sometimes people don't have their titles and stuff lined up, like your title here, your title length, is that optimized? That should be around, should be between, title length should be around 60 to 70 characters long. Don't worry about pixel width, it's just a bunch of garbage there. But then you have your meta description, meta description. There's no meta description on any of this stuff, so we'd want to make sure that this meta description is up to par, where you have meta descriptions anywhere between 160 characters and beyond. Google kind of cuts it off. It won't be visible after 160 characters, so most people try to leave it at 160. I say you can go 160 to 240, somewhere in that neighborhood, but that's an opinion. So more than 160 gives you more room to work, but if you want to have a call to action that shows up at the end of that, make sure it shows up before character 160. So what I've done here is inside of the client data sheet, or your business SEO data sheet, at the bottom page here, when you export your, if you exported this to, let's go to here, hold on a second, let's export it. When you export your crawl from Screaming Frog, it'll look something like this. You can take that whole thing into the back end of this, and then you can paste it all in here. It'll take a second because it's a lot of characters in there. Then we just want to make sure that do our calculations right here. Do we have our meta descriptions, our word count? Word count one tends to go around, so we're at let's see. So AK is the calculation we want to be at. So this is now what we have is an overview of how well the website's doing as a whole. So we have an average title length of 70, which is where we want to be. We have a meta description of basically nothing, so we need to go in and add all the meta descriptions. You can create all those very quickly via ChatGPT, and using an average word count of 500. Generally, for blog posts, you want to see that above 1,500, but for average site pages, this is a pretty average amount that I see from on a service page website. I like to see my pages all be at 1,500 words, but that's a tall order when it comes to creating content, which I'm about to show you. Now, if we go back over here, you can see that we've got a tool called Zimrider. Let's pull that up. All right, so this is what Zimwriter looks like. Inside of this area here, you can see I've got the menu here. It's got a few updates to it since, but then we're going to go into what's called the topical authority generator. So this would be your overall niche. If we come down to the AI vault and we go to activate topical authority generator, this is what we'd want to say is like, okay, what's the topic that we want to build up the authority of our website around? So in this case, we've talked about mold removal services, mold remediation. So that would be the overall word that we would talk about here. So mold remediation would be the overall broad concept we want to use here. Next up, we want to see, okay, how many topic clusters do we want to have? Now, I just generally like to go for 10. Now we've got 90 total blog posts here. So let's walk through this. You got 10 clusters with 3 keywords per cluster. So that's a total of 30. And then times 3 posts per long tail keyword. That's 90 posts. Now, not all of them titles are going to come out right, and AI doesn't get it all perfect. So let's just, but 90 is a good place to start. Then this is the fast model of ChatGPT. What in this case, it's going to be dirt cheap, but you're going to run the ChatGPT 4 because you want the smarter model when you're planning your content. So then, when that's done changing over the model, then we want to go to create authority CS. Now in the bottom of your screen, you'll see that a window pops up that says generating clusters. I'm using a different part of my screen so you don't see it. But it will take about 4 minutes to do it, and then we'll move on to the next section. So when this is all generating, then what we're going to see is basically generating a content calendar very rapidly in here. Now I believe I've still got my old content calendar in here, so we're just going to use it that way. So if we go to content calendar here, this is how it gets generated inside of Zimrider. This is all created rapidly by Zimrider. So you don't have to sit there and create each long tail keyword, each title independently. This is all created within a few minutes using Zimrider. Then you put all this information into Zimrider's bulk writer and you create all the articles. So then that builds into our next piece. But see how the broad concept is mold removal, which is the more commonly searched version of mold remediation. Mold remediation is the high ticket service. Mold removal is what people are trying to do. Hey, I don't care about this remediation term. It's more of the removal is what I want. I want the mold out of my house is what the clients of the mold companies are thinking. So that's why you got to put yourself in your client's shoes if you're the business owner and say, hey, you know, what are my clients searching for, and what's the most general term of my service that can be used? Like, you may go out if you offer remodel, for instance, you might you might build clusters around bathroom remodel, around kitchen remodel, around basement finishing or basement remodel. So those would be your can be your broad concept clusters, or if you want that'll give you a much more detailed topic clusters, or you can just type in remodeling. But then you want to make sure you're having remodeling services as the concept or as the broad concept versus having just remodel, because then people will say, well, how to remodel your house? Well, as a remodeling contractor, you wouldn't want somebody doing the work themselves. You want to get the work, so you want to explain how the process might go, yeah, and say, hey, then they get your prospect to realize, hey, this is going to be a ton of work. I don't have the skills, I don't have the tools, so I'm going to call up a business to get that help done with, or a contractor to help me out with that. So that's where you as the remodeler would want somebody to be thinking. So that's how overall the flow of this is. Because these are top line content. You talk about a funnel shape. This is the top blog is where the keywords that are ranking. And then you're going to go say, okay, they're going to fill out a form, or they're going to call your number at the bottom of this blog article, or they're going to subscribe to your blog and get more of your content and learn more about it, or they're going to go read another blog post. So you're going to have multiple call to actions available to the person so they can progress down to your funnel and filter through. This is just top of the funnel type blogs that you can be getting a lot more traffic to your website quickly by creating. Because you're writing for two different people here, or two different entities, if you will. You're writing for people because you want your writing to be friendly, to be accessible, but then you also want it to be understandable and relevant to search engines. Because search engines are going to look at the totality of your website, and they're going to say, okay, your website, this guy's website, it talks about remodel on this page, talks about window cleaning on this other page, and talks about tree service on this other page. This guy's not an authority on anything, we're not going to rank him for jack. Versus, if you have a website that's more like Wikipedia, in the sense of it relates different topics to one another through interlinking different articles, both articles that are on wikipedia.org as well as external authoritative articles. That's going to show Google, hey, this site really knows what it's talking about, so we're going to rank that sucker way up there. That's what you want to establish with Zimwriter by creating these broad concepts, getting the topic clusters, creating that have the main long tail keywords that you can rank for. Notice how it only took about 10 minutes for this to create the CSV. But then it creates a type. You can add in your meta description here. This is a new feature. I'm using not the latest version of Zimwriter right now, where when I generated this probably 4 or 5 months ago. So it didn't have the meta description as an option in there, but now it does. So it's a relatively new Zimwriter feature in there. But then you have your post title. So what do you do with your post titles? Now that Zimwriter's done with that, we can go over to our bulk writer with Zimwriter. We can take all of our 90 blog articles. We'll copy that. So right over here, we're at so when staying organized is key here. So before we upload our blog articles to the website, we're going to create a folder. But let's see where we are exactly in here. Open Zimrider CSV, copy the content calendar to copy into the content calendar tab. So what that is, inside of the client data sheet here, this is the content calendar tab. So I just this is the same headings that are on the generated CSV file from Zimwriter, and you can drop that in, and then you can create your publishing. You can add in your publishing date. Let's just say this is, I want to publish this one tomorrow, which is 8/2024, and then I can say, okay, you know, I want to have it be, I want to have one every day for the next while. So this is your publishing date. So this is when you're going to have your, there's a number of different ways to do this, to move your articles from Zimwriter into your website. WordPress is the best blogging platform available to us because there's a number of different integrations that I'm going to show you. And one of those integrations is if we go over to Zimwriter, then we can go to Options. Actually, it's going to have the bulk writer open, so it's not going to allow me to do that right now. But if we come over to Options and we come over to Set Up WordPress, you can integrate your WordPress websites with Zimwriter. So then it'll go from where we're going to go in just a minute, directly from creating the blog articles to adding those blog articles and scheduling them on your website so you don't have to touch them. Now there's pros and cons to that, but that saves a lot of work. Sometimes you'd normally have to have yourself or your secretary or maybe a virtual assistant do all that copying manually back and forth. This expedites the process. So now we're going to go over to we're going to take from our content calendar, we're going to take all of our blog post titles, select them all, Control C is for copying them over. We're going to go over to Zimwriter, and we're going to go over into our bulk writer here. We're going to put all those titles in here. Now we're going to set this up. So this is where you're setting up the settings on your, if you're mowing your lawn, you got to set the mower at the right height. You got to fill up the gas. You got to fill up the oil. You got to make sure the filter's not clogged, things like that. This is doing that, but for your blog. So you're going to basically adjust your different settings to be where your blog should be, all right? To be most available to and to get a solid draft of the article. So what I like to do, this is in my experience has been, you put your H2s around 10. Use the H2 number as a suggestion. So it may pull make 8 H2s for one article, it may make 12 for another, it may make 10 for the next one, etc. H2 content length, you want that on medium. Now you want your blog to be accessible. Now, if you're in the professional, like finance industries, you're going to be bound to have to make your words a certain way, so you're going to have to probably do more editing. But you can get a head start on that by changing up the way, if your words have to be second person, or if you want to make it a more story form, third person, if you have to make it professional, you've got different modes that you can select. Generally speaking, I like to be talking to people directly, so I choose the second person. I find that to be fairly effective and engaging. So then you want to leave out literary devices, because that generally adds more fluff to the article. And people want to be, nowadays, have such short attention spans. You want to be short and straight to the point. So enable lists, yes. Mid-journey prompt, that's an image, no. Enable key takeaways, that's at the very beginning of an article. It'll have your paragraph of introduction, then it'll say your key takeaway, 4 key takeaways are bing, bang, and boom. So we want our key takeaways. Then we want to add depth to the article by adding H3s. Now, what are H3s? Let's pull up a page here and give you an example of that. All right, so here we are on this website. We have this is SEO Meta in one click. It's one of many different Chrome extensions I find very helpful for doing SEO audits and things like that. But inside that, you click on that when you're on the website, you go to the headers tab, and then you can see exactly what your header structure is. You want to see these generally inside of a linear direct go H1 to H2 to H3. That's the more optimal. But then you have your H3 would be your H1, then you have maybe an H2, and then you have your H3. It's adding depth to the article. So then here you've got you should have one H1 per at the beginning of your article, and then throughout your blog post you'll have multiple H2s, but then adding subpoints underneath there as H3s and maybe even H4s, depending on how in-depth you want your article to be. So when setting up Zimwriter to create articles that have a lot of depth to them, that's important to do to enable your H3. FAQs, I like to have short answered FAQs at the bottom, just so that I can go back and answer those questions in more depth, but that gives you a basic template of these are 5 commonly asked questions about it, and it answers that way. Now this is where people can get overloaded with information. So if you're a nerd like me, you may go and Google 12 brand archetypes, but this is where you choose an audience personality. What this does mostly is give you more unique content. It takes your content that it's thinking about generating and says who is going to be watching this, who is going to be reading this, right? And then it twists that, it adapts that language so then it's more accessible, more approachable to that particular brand archetype, to that particular personality. So then what I do for most of mine is I use either an explorer or a ruler, because somebody who's because the person that you're going to be using, if you're go back to the remodel example, if you're a remodeler and you're wanting to increase your blog, what you would want to do is choose the ruler here, because you want the decision maker. You want this blog to appeal to decision making people, because you don't want to have to deal with everybody and their mother. You want to have to deal with the decision maker, right? So you want to pick the ruler. Now, if you're writing a bunch of romance blog posts, you may want to pick to the lover, right? Or if you're wanting to appeal to Joe Schmo, who doesn't really have any specialty, it's more of maybe you're going after to the make money online space. You may want to approach it to every man, because you say, hey, I want this to be available to anybody, but it's not going to have near as much flair to it. Or you may say, hey, explore, make it a little more exciting. So that's kind of where your brand archetypes come into play. They take your article and add a unique viewpoint and make it a more appeal to that person. So what I'll use here is I'll use the ruler, and then what we want to make sure to use is 3.5 turbo, unless you want to spend a lot of money, because otherwise you're going to be at probably $3 to $4 per article on the high end. I've seen things be as low as $1, but if you're on GPT-4, you're going to be spending $3 to $4 an article, versus if you're on turbo, it's literally like 40 cents, 30 to 40 cents, depending on how long the article is. I like them longer, so they tend to be a little bit more. So then what we want to do is write in the style of. So do me a favor and pause this video and open up a new tab on there and go listen to Tony Robbins. Go listen to a Tony Robbins clip, motivational clip. Notice how he's talking. That's what we're talking about when it comes in the style of. I don't know how Al Capone talks, but that's not... Tony Robbins is a much more recognizable figure, so that's why I use that one. Now, automatic keywords. This is not pulling from an SEO tool. This is not pulling from Google's magic box of keywords. This is taking from what the AI is trained on, saying, hey, these are the keywords that it thinks that it should add in there. Right? So then it's adding automatic keywords. That's really helpful to have. So let me just add it in there. Now, here's where you can add in images if you want to be a little more nerdy, right? So if you have your ChatGPT API key, you can use any of these DALL-E. This is the generator style. This is the image generator inside ChatGPT. But you can see that it is estimated pricing for each one. So 12 cents an image, 8 cents an image, whatever. So then you can add a featured image that way. If you have a Pixels subscription, you can add their API key in here. And just for broad purposes, an API key is simply the connection between you and another service, right? It's like you're connecting when you if you're a Tesla driver, you plug in your car to your house. It's the cord that goes between your house and the car. That's all the API key is. If you need help setting it up, let me know. I'll get you figured out. Enable progress indicator. So you can set up images there. You can add WordPress here. If you want to make sure you've added in your site beforehand, we'll have another video about that shortly. But then you can enable scheduling on there. You can say, hey, you know, I want to pick this WordPress site, this WordPress category for these blogs, subcategory for these other blogs. I want to set these articles as scheduled, and then I want to schedule X number of posts for each month starting on this one, and save settings. Then what it'll do is add those articles to your blog as they're being generated. Because remember, if you've given them you've already given them access to your WordPress blog if you've gotten to that point, right? Remember, inside of ChatGPT, inside of here, you go to the options menu, enable WordPress, and then you're adding in your username and password, and then you can integrate Zimrider with it and upload those posts directly to your blog. That's all I like to do it with this. Generally speaking, I now use a different tool for uploading WordPress, or uploading my pieces or blogs to WordPress, but this is a very reliable and pretty straightforward tool. It's not near as complicated as the one I use right now. Is basically a bunch of spreadsheets put together. Very smart, but kind of complicated. So if you want, I'll be creating another video on that later on. That's called Sheet, AAH Sheet. Guy who creates that is really smart. Great Facebook group to be part of. So, but then what you would do here is go to Start Bulk Writer. If you want to take this to the next level, what you can do is give it more information than just the title. So let me pull that up for you. All right. So if you were to take the CSV file, that's what's generated directly here. Create Topical Authority CSV. It's a CSV file, comma separated values file, basically a spreadsheet, and take all that information. What you can do is take the column H, the merged column, give it even more information, because this is giving it an outline, this is giving it the category, this is giving it the style of post, this is giving it the long tail keyword to go after, and then you can take all that information and plug that in instead of just the title itself. This gives the AI much more to work with, and gives you overall a better article, because again, you're giving the AI more context. And think of it like if you were to ask to speak on a given topic. If you were to ask to speak about black mold removal versus if you were asked to create a do-it-yourself guide to effective black mold removal techniques, which would be easier to do? Which would be more helpful to your audience? Being more specific, of course. So then you're adding all that information in here, and then you're hitting the Start Bulk Writer, and then over the next several hours, it'll churn out those 90 blog posts. So sometimes what I'll do is when I'll set this up before I go to bed, and then when in the morning I've got 90 blog posts that are created and uploaded and scheduled on my site or my client's website, and then it goes a lot faster. It enables us to get results for them at a much more rapid rate. So that's part of accelerating your SEO. One is staying organized, as I mentioned in the beginning. The other one is leveraging AI. What I tell people is AI is not going to create for you the perfect article, but what it'll do is create a lot of content quickly and create probably a C-grade draft, if not a little better than that. It's passable, but then you can go in and adjust it in different ways, and you'll learn using either going in there manually and changing up the wording, hiring a writer to go through and edit it, or using custom prompts inside ChatGPT. You can get this content the way that you want it, sounding how you want it, fairly quickly. Much faster than if you were to write each article out individually yourself on using the time that we both know you don't have. Right? So that's the goal here, is to accelerate your business through creating a lot of organic content rapidly.